A year ago, I installed 18 solar panels with 8,340 peak watts and a 10 kilowatt battery to power my home. I chose Beem products because it's a top French managed system and one of France's most popular brands, used in over 50,000 homes. In November 2024, we posted an installation video and I promised to review 2025 for you a year later. As promised, we'll do that today. In this video, I'll answer how much money my solar system made in 2025 and, importantly, how long it took. Will producing my own energy be profitable? And the other point that also interests me a lot, beyond the financial aspect, is how much my system allowed me to be more self-sufficient. In 2025, before getting into all the details, the numbers, the statistics, all that stuff I love and that you certainly love too, I'll start by sharing some feedback on the self-sufficiency and comfort this setup has given me. First of all, in 2025, zero maintenance on the system. I had no problems. Everything worked on its own without me really having to take care of it. I could clean my solar panels on the roof, but overall, the system has required no maintenance or effort. The Beem app is well designed. I can monitor my panels' production and my home's consumption in real time, helping me adjust my usage habits. And honestly, I check the app every day because I love seeing how self-sufficient I am or not. And the answer is pretty clear. In 2025, I was absolutely not self-sufficient, even though I actually have one of the biggest setups offered by Beem. And I'm part of the top 1% of electricity producers among the 50,000 households equipped with it. So I have a very, very, very large setup. I'm still not self-sufficient. How is that possible? It shows just how far I am from it. I paid exactly the same amount to EDF as last year. I haven't reduced my electricity bills. Yes, so you might say there's a little problem here, but actually it's pretty easy to explain. In 2025, I bought an electric car and an electric car. It uses much less than you think, but much more than you believe.
What you're saying doesn't make any sense.
Driving 750 km in my electric car costs 20 euros, much less than the 90 euros for a tank of gas. But to drive 750 km, it uses 150 kilowatt of electricity, which is as much as my whole house consumes. In winter, 5-6 days. In summer, 10-12 days. So you could see it as a half smile. Success, even though I bought a used electric car, I should mention, that consumes as much as my house. Well, I haven't increased my electricity bill, but in return, I'm still not self-sufficient. I should mention that I still experienced about a dozen power outages in 2025, and each time my battery automatically took over, so I barely even noticed. I mention a dozen, but that's just what I recall. Actually, there were many more when I was asleep or away. I can't even count them all, but the system didn't make me fully self-sufficient. However, it did allow me to be independent whenever it was necessary, whenever the grid went down and I needed electricity. So, I wasn't completely self-sufficient thanks to this system, but I did become more resilient, and that's already a success in itself. Let's get to the main topic, the economics. But first, my setup is a bit unusual. I'm special because I installed second-hand solar panels from a lot of different brands. So, on my roof, I have 8,340 peak watts, whereas if I had gone with the Beem offer, I would have had 18 panels of 500 watts each, so 9,000 peak watts. My setup is unique because most people with the Beem installation have 6 panels and a 0.6 kilowatt battery. So I have twice what the average customer installs at home, and that shows in the initial investment. The average Beem customer installation costs around 10,000 euros, whereas for a setup like mine, you should expect to pay about 18,000 euros with installation done by a professional, because for these large systems, you absolutely have to go through a certified installer. It's a lot of money. It's a very significant initial investment, but Beem offers to finance this system with a consumer loan over 15 years. It's interesting because the monthly payment is lower than the electricity the system generates each month. And the answer to this question is on my app. In the tab, where does my solar production go in 2025? I see that my 8,340 watt peak solar panels produced 9,248 kilowatt hours of electricity. But I can also see that I injected 3,427 kilowatt hours back into the grid for free, which is 37% of my production. Yeah, I lost more than a third of it, which means hundreds and hundreds of euros. That's the mistake I mentioned earlier, but I'll explain how I can fix it right after. I stored 2,581 kilowatt hours in my battery, or 28% of my production. And finally, I directly consumed 3,240 kilowatt hours of electricity produced by the solar panels, which is 35%. I saved 5,821 kilowatt hours of electricity by using solar panels instead of buying from the grid. How much is that in euros? Since January, I've been on the Vert Electric Auto Electricity plan from EDF. Peak hours are 7:30 ante-meridiem to 11:30 post-meridiem at 23 cents kWh, and off-peak hours are 11:30 post-meridiem to 7:30 ante-meridiem at 13 cents kWh. That's the plan. Having a solar system is fascinating, as the panels generate electricity from 8 ante-meridiem to 6 post-meridiem. From 6 post-meridiem to midnight, I use up my battery, and then at night, I take advantage of much cheaper electricity and use it to charge my car. In 2025, using my system, I saved 5,821 kilowatt hours at 23 cents each, totaling 1,338 euros. That's my most accurate estimate, though it's likely a bit less, especially in summer. Above all, the battery must have partially emptied after 11:30 post-meridiem during the off-peak hours at 1:30 post-meridiem, so let's say I actually saved more like 1,250 euros. If we assume that the price of electricity should increase by an average of 4% per year and that the battery and panels should degrade by about 1% per year, well, you could say that I should make my 18,000 euro installation profitable in less than 12 years. Most BIM customers break even on installation in about 10 years with a 15-year battery warranty. It's a great return on investment, especially since I've tested many competing systems on the channel that only became profitable after 6 to 8 years. But those were systems with much shorter lifespans that didn't allow for autonomy and were much less powerful. So if we compare that a bit, it's not really comparable. But the system from BIM is actually a very good value for money and a good return on investment. The app shows that by 2025, my battery has completed just 300 charge cycles, even though it's guaranteed for 6,000, and still have 60% of its capacity left. So, at this rate, I can use my battery for a good 20 years without too many problems. And as for the Beem panels, they're guaranteed to still have 80% of their power after 25 years of use. And they will very likely have a lifespan of 30 to 40 years. So we're considering a system that will be profitable for about half its lifespan and also during the second half. Well, I'll be producing electricity for free. That's really when I'll start making money on my initial investment. Let me remind you, I currently send 37% of my output to the grid for free. If I use that energy, I'd make my system profitable even faster. I have several solutions for this, but before I show them to you, I just saw that BIM released an update that allows me to manually control the charging and discharging of my battery. I can choose to block the battery from discharging. At night, during off-peak hours, I ensure I have energy for the morning peak. That way, I'm sure that the energy produced by my solar panels will be used when it's most profitable. I can also choose to charge my battery at night with energy from the grid during the hours. Off-peak at 13 cents, so I avoid buying energy at 23 cents the next morning. It's an update that will really allow me to save a lot more energy. And it's not the only update that's coming. BIM will soon include AI to further optimize our system and help us make our installation profitable faster. But there's also another update coming soon. Basically, BIM will offer us to make our battery available to the French electricity grid in exchange for payment. BIM assures me that basically I should earn several hundred euros per year by lending my battery to the French electricity grid. When, on certain days of the year, they need to store a surplus or use energy because there is too much consumption, At some point there's a peak, they need to use the energy from my battery. I make my battery available to the French electricity grid to stabilize it in exchange for payment. There are plenty of updates like this coming. These are very interesting news that will allow me to make my system profitable even faster. I'll keep you updated in the next videos. Let's get back to my big problem. Right now, I'm sending 37% of what I produce back to the grid for free. That's a huge loss of money. And one of the first and simplest solutions is simply to add a battery module. The Beem battery comes in 3 configurations, 6.610 and 13.4 kWh. I currently have 10 kWh. So I'm going to install an additional power block module, which costs 2,000 euros plus the installation cost, since you absolutely have to use a professional. Well, as you'll see in a moment, I'm going to do it myself, but that's just for the purposes of this video and because I have a professional assisting me. Important information: if you want to add a module, you have to do it within the year following the installation of the battery before it has completed 300 cycles. To avoid having too much of a chemical difference between the old and new modules, the installation is really very simple, you'll see. It all begins in the app, where you'll need to precondition the battery 24-48 hours ahead to get ready for our new module. On installation day, we turn off all circuit breakers and lift the inverter to place the new module below. We reinstall the inverter, secure the modules to each other and the wall, turn the circuit breakers back on, and we're done. It takes about an hour and isn't very complicated, but you need to follow the instructions closely. And if you're wondering what's behind my battery, it's a protection to prevent heat from transferring to the wood of my siding and my deck, so it helps reduce the risk of fire. If you want more information, I invite you to check out my video on the battery installation. Now I have the max possible configuration on this battery, 13.4 kWh of storage. And you should know that if you need more, Beem also sells a 3-phase version, which can go up to 80 kWh. Currently, I'm sending 37% of what I produce for free back to the grid. With this extra battery module, I should reduce that to 30%. In my case, I have to admit that it's not the most cost-effective solution, because the few extra percent of self-consumption that I'll gain will never make up for the 2,000 euros, plus the cost of installing the additional battery module. But for me, it's also because I have 8,340 watts peak of solar panels. If I had 9,000, which I should have had if I just installed Beem panels on my roof, with 9,000 watt panels, a 13.4 kWh battery may be more appealing. And anyway, I wanted to test the maximum configuration that Beem offers so I could make test videos on this YouTube channel. So there you go, I installed the additional module. But in your case, I really recommend that after a year, you ask a Beem advisor to run a simulation and see if it's worth it for you to add a module. You start with a small installation, and after a year, you do an assessment like I'm doing today with a Beem advisor. And that way, you'll know if it's worth adding a module or not. Okay, I added a battery module, but my problem still isn't solved. I'm still going to send about 30% of what I produce back to the grid for free. It's time to consider the next solution. The second solution I found is to install the electric car charger sold by Beem, starting at 799 euros. It's a charger that can deliver up to 7 kWh to my car, which is 32 amps. And for comparison, if I plug my car into a regular outlet, well, I could only deliver 3 kWh, which is 13 amps. So here we're dealing with a pretty fast charger, the charger. It knows exactly when I'm feeding surplus back into the grid, thanks to an amateur clamp that I added to my electrical panel. The installation is pretty simple, you don't need a professional, and there are even video tutorials on YouTube that are really well made for the app. I need to go choose a mode so that my car's battery only charges when there's surplus. My car's 51 kWh battery is nearly 4 times larger than my 13 kWh Beem battery. It can absorb a lot of surplus in winter, but since I rarely produce surplus, it likely won't help me much. In spring, summer and autumn, it will let me greatly reduce what I send back to the grid for free. I might go from 30% reinjection down to 20% or even 15%. If I manage things well, it's really a system that will allow me to get the most out of my setup. But I'll always have 10, 15%, maybe even 20% of energy that I'll send back to the grid. I still need to set up another solution, so we're moving on to the next one. I move my hands a lot, but I'm excited. The third solution is to install a solar router that will activate your water heater at times when you're producing surplus energy. Basically, you'll use your hot water tank to store energy as heat when you're producing too much electricity. It's a pretty simple system, but honestly, it's a clever solution. Unfortunately, it only works with traditional electric water heaters that have a heating element inside. If you have a thermodynamic water heater with a heat pump, it can be more complex. Some systems work, but not all. Well, in any case, I've already given you 3 solutions, so you'll definitely find at least one, maybe even 2 of them that will meet your needs. Enrico nous garant de l'environnement, certified professional, installs the Beem, allowing us to sell surplus to EDF at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm putting this solution last because it's really the least profitable. It's much more worthwhile to use the energy yourself. Because it's like saving 23 cents, whereas if you sell it back, you only save 5 cents. After implementing all other solutions, I'll still send about 20% of my electricity to the grid, which I could sell to EDF. That'll be about 2,000 kilowatt hours, which is 100 euros. It's not nothing, but I repeat, it's not profitable to sell it back. It's always better to store or use the energy you produce first. That's why I added a battery module first, then an electric car charger, and finally a solar router for the water heater. Only after that do I sell back any remaining energy. These solutions should increase my annual savings from 1,250 to nearly 1,500 euros. Which means I'll pay off my installation not in 12 years, but in 10 years, which is the average payback period for BIM systems. So that's good news. I hope this video and this review have been thorough enough. It really took me a long time to write because there's a lot of data and a lot of things to take into account. It's still incomplete, but I tried hard to summarize it for you. Still, the video will be 20 minutes long, so it's already lengthy. Share your thoughts in the comments, add to what I said, and give your feedback too. I'm not the only one doing a review, but in the comments, share your own review and I'll pin your reviews. Really, I'll highlight them so that everyone can benefit from them. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the upcoming battery test videos. But also the reports I do in eco-friendly houses to show you how to live in a more sustainable, more durable, more ecological way. Don't forget that you can also take action. Boost this video by liking and sharing it so it gets shown to more people, and let's show people that it's profitable to produce your own energy. Thanks for watching until the end. This was Julian Malara. See you soon on this channel. Big things are coming. Just a teaser. Bye.